After nearly 50 years, one of America's most iconic industrial symbols just walked away from California. Not a startup, not a struggling company. This is Budweiser, a facility that once produced millions of gallons of beer every single day, now shutting down for good. But this isn't really about beer. And it's not just another corporate decision. This is a signal, something deeper, something structural is breaking. Because if a giant like Budweiser can no longer make the numbers work here, then what does that say about the system itself? For decades, California wasn't just the center of tech innovation. It was a full-scale industrial engine. Food processing, energy production, consumer goods, massive physical systems operating every single day. Facilities like Budweiser weren't just factories. They were nodes inside a much larger machine. Think about what it actually takes to run a plant like that. You need a stable workforce. You need affordable land to operate at scale. You need reliable energy, non-stop, high volume, low cost. And you need logistics that can move raw materials in and finished products out without friction. When all of those pieces align, the system works, margins hold, production scales, profit follows. But here's the catch. This system is fragile. It only works when every input stays within a certain range. Now imagine each layer starting to shift. Labor gets more expensive, land prices surge, energy costs climb, regulations stack on top of each other, slowing everything down. Logistics become more complex, more expensive, less predictable. Individually, each increase seems manageable, but together, they compound, quietly, consistently. Until one day, the math stops working, and when the math breaks, the system doesn't bend, it shuts down. So the real question isn't why Budweiser left. It's what happens when an entire industrial system starts becoming too expensive to exist in the first place. At first, the pressure didn't come from one direction, it came from everywhere, slowly, then all at once. Corporate taxes in California remained among the highest in the country. Labor costs kept rising as wages, insurance, and compliance requirements increased year after year. Land, especially industrial space, became dramatically more expensive, squeezing large-scale operations that depend on physical footprint. Then came energy, one of the most critical inputs for any manufacturing plant. Prices didn't just go up, they became volatile, unpredictable, harder to plan around, and layered on top of all of it, regulation, environmental rules, workplace standards, permitting processes, each one individually justified. But together, they formed a system that moved slower, cost more, and became harder to navigate. Here's where it gets dangerous. High cost alone doesn't kill a system. Businesses can adapt, they can optimize, they can absorb pressure, up to a point. But what happens when every cost category rises at the same time, and keeps rising? Now the problem isn't just expense, it's uncertainty. Companies can't plan long-term. They can't forecast stable margins. Every year becomes a new calculation, a new risk. And once that uncertainty enters the system, something fundamental shifts. Because at some point, it's no longer about making less profit. It becomes about whether the system can function at all. So the real question isn't whether costs are high. It's how long before the entire model becomes impossible to operate. The numbers are no longer subtle. They're loud, and they're pointing in one direction. Over 350 companies have already moved their headquarters out of California. Not small firms, major employers. Tens of thousands of jobs have disappeared along with them. Entire sectors are shrinking, especially in manufacturing and food production. Multiple large processing plants have shut down within the same window. That's not random. That's a pattern forming in real time. Now look at the other side of the map. Texas isn't just growing, it's accelerating. Its economy is expanding at nearly twice the national average. The cost structure is fundamentally different. No state corporate income tax, lower land costs, cheaper energy, faster permitting. But here's the part most people miss. Companies aren't just leaving California to survive. They're relocating to rebuild. Entire supply chains are being reassembled in new locations. Production, distribution, labor, logistics, moving together, not separately. This is capital in motion. Factories don't move unless the long-term math is undeniable. And when they do, they don't go halfway. They commit. They invest. They scale. So this isn't just about companies exiting a high-cost state. It's about capital choosing a new home, a new system, a new center of gravity. And once that shift begins, it feeds on itself. More companies follow. More infrastructure gets built. More talent flows in. So the real question is no longer who is leaving California. It's where all that money is going. And what's being built there right now. This is no longer about one company making a cost decision. What we're seeing now is something much bigger. A system-level shift. On one side, you have California, a model built on high costs, dense regulation, and expensive energy. A system that prioritizes control, compliance, and long-term policy goals. On the other side, you have Texas, lower costs, faster approvals, business-friendly policies, a system designed for speed, scale, and expansion. These are not just different states. These are competing economic models. And companies like Budweiser aren't just leaving, they're choosing. Every factory that shuts down and reopens somewhere else is a decision about where the future will be built, where jobs will grow, where supply chains will anchor. This is capital voting in real time. And here's why that matters. Once enough companies make the same move, momentum takes over. Infrastructure follows, talent follows, investment multiplies. What starts as a few relocations becomes a self-reinforcing system. That's how entire regions rise, and others fall behind. But here's the part most people still don't see. This isn't just a competition between California and Texas. This is about who will control the next version of America's industrial backbone. And once that control shifts, it's almost impossible to reverse. This is where the story flips. Because this was never really about Budweiser. Not about beer. Not even about California. This is about control. Control over the physical system that makes the American economy work. When a factory shuts down, it doesn't disappear in isolation. The supply chain connected to it begins to move. Suppliers lose contracts. Distributors reroute. Logistics networks shift. Then labor follows. Skilled workers relocate. New workers are trained somewhere else. Entire communities start to reform around new industrial hubs. And when all of that moves together, something deeper moves with it. Economic power. Because production is not just about making goods, it's about anchoring an ecosystem. The closer you are to production, the more influence you have over pricing, jobs, innovation, and long-term growth. Once that ecosystem is rebuilt in a new location, it becomes incredibly sticky. Infrastructure gets locked in. Capital keeps flowing. Talent pipelines get established, and almost nothing pulls it back. This is exactly what happened in the Rust Belt decades ago. And once those factories left, they didn't come back. So what we're watching right now isn't a cycle, it's a transfer. A slow but powerful shift of where America actually builds things. Which leads to the real question. 10 years from now, when the next generation of factories, supply chains, and industrial systems are fully in place, who controls them? Texas isn't just attracting companies, it's building a complete system, energy, logistics, workforce, all aligned for scale. California still leads in technology, but it's slowly losing the physical backbone that supports everything else. And when production leaves, other industries don't stay stable for long. Budweiser is not the end of the story. It's the signal, the beginning of something bigger. So the question is no longer why one company left. It's how many will follow next. And when they do, what will the American economy actually look like?